Well, international tourism to the United States has taken a hit since the start of the Trump administration.
U.S. economy to lose billions as foreign tourists.
American tourism, the largest smokeless industry in the United States, was once considered a money printing machine with hundreds of billions of dollars each year. But now, American tourism is falling into an unprecedented crisis. International tourists are boycotting. Hundreds of tours are canceled. Revenues are evaporating by the day. America has become strangely deserted. In just the first few months of 2025, U.S. tourism has lost up to $64 billion. But that figure is just the tip of the iceberg. And the scariest thing, this is just the beginning. The U.S. tourism crisis could lead to the collapse of a series of other industries. Airlines are in trouble. Hotels and shopping malls are closing down en masse. Thousands of people are unemployed. A domino effect is spreading silently. The future of the American dream has never been so bleak. So, what has caused a tourism powerhouse like the U.S. to be on the brink of collapse? What consequences are silently gnawing at the world's #1 economy? Is there still a chance to reverse the situation? The answer will shock you. America faces tourism crisis, most severe decline in international visitors in history. There is a truth that you can feel. America is gradually losing its appeal to international tourists, leading to a decrease in tourism revenue of billions of dollars. While the world recovers strongly from the pandemic, America is being left behind by barriers of its own making. International travelers are now avoiding the U.S. due to the unpopular policies of the Trump administration, concerns about being stopped at the border, and unfavorable exchange rates, said Julia Simpson, CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, an organization representing the private sector of the travel industry. Of the 184 countries, the U.S. is the only one that has seen an absolute decline in international visitor spending, Simpson said. The U.S. is definitely losing its kingship in this area. Also, according to new data from the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, the U.S. is expected to lose $12.5 billion in tourism revenue by 2025. This number is expected to continue to increase from $64 billion to $100 billion by the end of 2025. Tourist spending is estimated to fall below $169 billion by the end of the year, down from $181 billion in 2024, a decline of about 7% from the previous year, and down 22% from the peak in 2019, when tourism was at its peak in the U.S. While the global tourism industry is forecast to grow strongly through 2025, despite economic headwinds, the United States is a notable exception. For decades, America has been a symbol of freedom and opportunity, a place that young people dream of visiting at least once in their lives. But in recent years, that image has been eroded by strict immigration policies, along with tariffs and political tensions that have left many feeling that America is no longer a friendly and welcoming destination. America from dream to barrier. Tariff policy, fueling a wave of silent boycotts. The trade war initiated by the Trump administration has not only roiled global markets, but also left cracks in diplomatic relations, especially with close allies like Canada and Europe. One of the most serious blows was the policy of imposing high tariffs of up to 25% on steel and aluminum imported from Canada, a close neighbor and the largest trading partner of the U.S. This action was likened to a stab in the back and quickly sparked a strong wave of protests among the Canadian people. Furthermore, Mr. Trump repeatedly called Mr. Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, governor, referring to the annexation of Canada as the 51st state of the United States. Prime Minister Trudeau once said that the U.S. president was serious about this annexation intention and declared that the Canadian people would never accept it. Immediately after the U.S. imposed tariffs, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau not only strongly criticized this action on the international stage, but he also made a subtle but decisive move. The Prime Minister urged Canadians to summer at home instead of traveling to the U.S. In a speech on February 1st, 2025, Mr. Trudeau emphasized, "Choose Canada. Maybe you will completely give up imported orange juice from Florida, change your vacation plans to stay in Canada, explore the national parks and provinces, historical sites of our country." Canada has long been the largest source market for visitors to the United States. According to the U.S. Travel Association, More than 20 million Canadian visitors visited the country in 2024, generating more than $10.5 billion in tourism revenue. However, a 10% decline in Canadian visitors in 2025 could cost the U.S. tourism industry $2.1 billion in revenue and 14,000 jobs. According to the U.S. Travel Association, up to 90% of travel and tourism spending in the United States comes from domestic tourists. But there is a little-known fact that foreign tourists spend 7 to 8 times more than Americans on each trip. They come not only to relax, but also to spend, shop, eat, sightsee, rent cars, stay in luxury hotels, and use other high-end services. This shows that international tourism is not only important in terms of quantity, but also has great economic value to the U.S. tourism industry. Canadian tourists, in particular, spend 3 times more on vacations in the United States than Americans do on their own vacations. But sadly, by 2025, they won't be back. Thousands of tours have been canceled in the U.S. A quiet boycott is spreading. Many Canadians have canceled their travel plans to the U.S., switching to other destinations such as Mexico and Europe. Mexico, a close neighbor, has seen a similar trend. Many middle and upper-class tourists who once flocked to Houston or San Diego for shopping and vacations are now discouraged by diplomatic tensions and tighter border security. Europe has also turned its back, with Germany down 28%, Spain down 25%, the UK down 18%, and countries like Ireland and the Dominican Republic seeing declines ranging from 24% to 33%. Even traditionally loyal Asian markets like South Korea have seen a 15% drop, and Australia down 7%. These are numbers unprecedented in the history of modern American tourism. On the surface, people might cite strict visa policies, strict border checks, or stiff trade tariffs. But beneath the surface, the soft boycott of international travelers reflects something deeper, a sense of rejection, of being unwelcome. With insults directed at foreign leaders, indifference in handling incidents with international citizens, that image is crumbling. In European travel forums, stories that make travelers shiver are being passed around. A German teenager detained in Hawaii for not having booked a hotel room in advance, a Korean couple questioned for more than an hour at the Chicago airport despite having a valid visa. These are no longer isolated incidents, but symbols of a common feeling. America is becoming an unpredictable and unfriendly land. In tourism, a country's brand is built on emotions, on the American dream that generations have longed for, on a sense of freedom, friendliness, and opportunity. In Los Angeles, one of the most popular tourist cities in the United States, international visitors fell 3.5% in the first quarter of 2025. Hotels, restaurants, and small businesses that rely on foreign visitors began to cut staff. In New York, a slump in European bookings has prompted many high-end hotels to focus on the domestic market, but the results have been disappointing. American visitors spend 7 to 8 times less than international visitors, according to estimates from the U.S. Travel Association. Luxury spending at shopping malls, fine dining, and museums, once the gold mines of the tourism industry, has been strangely quiet. Perhaps the greatest damage lies not in the tens of billions of dollars in lost revenue, but in the erosion of the country's image. While U.S. tariffs have forced many countries to reconsider their trade and tourism relationships, increasingly stringent immigration policies and the continued appreciation of the U.S. dollar have caused millions of potential tourists to quietly withdraw without a word of protest. The U.S.'s tough immigration policy and rising dollar make foreign tourists wary. A high school teacher from Cologne, Germany, was preparing to take a dream trip to the United States with her daughter. Planes were booked, and plans were made to visit national parks like Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon. But just weeks before her departure, she read an update from the German Foreign Ministry. Visa exemption does not guarantee entry to the United States. Some German citizens have been detained and deported at the border. In Germany, an incident has clearly exposed the cracks in the increasingly strict immigration policy of the United States. 2 teenage girls with a desire to explore the world were suddenly detained and deported from Hawaii simply because they did not have a hotel reservation before entering the country. It is worth noting that they had valid passports, no criminal records, and enough finances to pay for the entire trip. The incident immediately stirred up a wave of indignation in Germany. the media harshly criticized the cold and inflexible behavior of the U.S. side. In response, in a diplomatic move that could not be more obvious, the German government issued an official travel warning, advising its citizens to be cautious when entering the United States. But all that was still not enough to convince U.S. immigration officers who suspected that the two girls might be looking for illegal work, despite having no evidence other than the lack of hotel reservations. The U.S.-Canada border, once a bustling hub for holiday travel, is now unusually quiet. Corey Fram, director of the 1000 Islands International Tourism Council, expressed concern about a series of new barriers that are discouraging Canadian visitors. One of the biggest changes is a rule requiring Canadian citizens to register when staying in the U.S. for more than 30 days, a completely new limit that applies even to people who were used to easily traveling without a visa for half a year. This policy not only creates a paper trail, but also carries an unspoken message of suspicion and control. Since 2020, the U.S. government has required all foreign nationals over the age of 14, including Canadians, to submit fingerprints and register their personal data if they overstay their visa. Regulations that were once thought to apply only to high-risk countries have now been imposed on even the closest neighbors. The impact goes beyond the decline in visitor numbers. It also creates a psychological wall that makes weekend shopping trips, family vacations, and even professional conferences increasingly a matter of second guessing. Many people are choosing to stay put or to switch to less disruptive destinations such as Europe or Japan. While the U.S. economy remains strong, the strengthening dollar has become a double-edged sword for the tourism industry. For international travelers, especially from Europe and Asia, every expense in the U.S. has become more expensive. A typical vacation has become a complicated financial calculation, and not everyone is choosing to splurge during times of global economic uncertainty. By 2025, outbound travel spending in the U.S. had dropped significantly, partly due to unfavorable exchange rates, but the deeper cause was a feeling of no longer being welcome. Once a symbol of individual freedom and gender diversity, America is now facing a reality. European countries have begun issuing travel warnings aimed at the LGBTQ+ community, stressing that travel to the U.S. may no longer be as safe as it once was. America becomes unsafe for LGBTQ+ travelers. Eerily, a Finnish travel blogger who is transgender, had to cancel a trip to New York at the last minute. The reason? A warning from the Finnish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If the gender on your passport is different from the gender assigned at birth, you may be refused entry to the United States. At the same time, a series of European countries, including Denmark, Finland, France, and Germany, have updated their travel warnings for the U.S., especially for those in the LGBTQ+ community. The warning does not mention U.S. President Donald Trump by name, but it comes just weeks after he signed a controversial executive order. The order requires federal agencies to identify gender as male or female and reflect that on all official documents such as passports, visas, and electronic travel authorization, ESTO. Since March, the U.S. State Department has stopped issuing passports with the X gender designation, which was a popular choice for gay people. The Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated in its advisory, if you have an X gender symbol in your passport or have changed your gender from birth, please contact the U.S. Embassy before traveling. France requires citizens to declare their assigned sex at birth on visa or ESTE applications, even if they have long transitioned. Germany and Finland have also issued similar advice, creating a wave of anxiety among the international LGBTQ+ community, which has long viewed the U.S. as a destination symbolizing freedom and diversity. Never before in modern history has the United States, the iconic destination of the dream of freedom, witnessed such a wave of travel warnings from allied countries. Warnings that used to appear only in times of crisis or conflict are now being updated with alarming frequency from Europe to Asia, from North America to the Pacific. As the world watches America, travel warnings increase. The effects ripple across the globe. In March 2025, the German Foreign Ministry revised its travel advice to the United States, following a series of incidents in which German citizens were detained at airports, questioned for long periods, and even deported despite having round-trip tickets and complete documentation. Travelers should note that visa exemption does not guarantee entry. Decisions at border crossings are increasingly subjective and strict. The official advice reads, Canada, the country with the longest and most intimate border with the United States, has also begun to send out a gentle but clear warning signal. Global affairs. Canada has advised citizens to carefully plan their stay and finances, noting a new rule requiring Canadians staying longer than 30 days to submit biometrics and register for tracking, something that has been exempted in the past. The Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has updated its list of legal risks when traveling to the US, including the possibility of being refused entry and having your phone and luggage searched without a warrant. Australian travelers should carefully consider the purpose of their trip and limit the amount of sensitive personal data they carry. South Korea, a country with a large number of students and tourists in the US, has issued an internal bulletin warning citizens to consider switching to group travel or through reputable travel agencies to avoid suspicion at the border. It is worth noting that these warnings are not only due to visa or immigration policies, but also to the unfriendly atmosphere that is spreading in the perception of global citizens. Stories of foreigners being questioned without reason, detained for vague reasons, or treated disrespectfully at the airport are increasingly shared on social media and in the international press. At an international tourism conference in Lisbon, Catherine Simpson, an expert in the global tourism industry, could not hide her regret. The rest of the world is putting up public signs and attracting people to visit their countries. The United States now has a sign saying, "We are not open for business, closed." What a pity. The domino effect and the cost of lack of visitors. Consequences of the collapse of U.S. tourism. On a small street corner in New York, Uncle Miguel, the owner of a 3-generation taco shop, sits staring out at the street. Since the decline in international tourists, his shop has been deserted. Before, Japanese, Koreans, French people came by every day. They ordered food, took pictures, laughed and chatted. Now, all I can hear is the wind and the dusty cash register, he says, his eyes fixed on the faded menu. The quiet but profound collapse of international tourism in the United States is not just a crisis, but an economic domino effect, spreading to every corner of the country. Fewer international visitors to the United States means fewer airport fees, fewer rental car bookings, empty restaurants, and the inability of many tourism-dependent businesses to operate. From hotel cleaners in Chicago to waiters in New Orleans to tour guides in Las Vegas to taxi drivers in San Francisco, millions of people have had their hours cut, have been laid off, or have been forced to leave the professions that once supported their families. Small businesses, already operating on the razor's edge, are now struggling to survive. On a broader scale, cities that rely on tax revenue from tourism are struggling with budget deficits that directly affect infrastructure projects, public parks, and cultural institutions. Many urban development plans have been postponed or cut, slowing down the vibrant and attractive pace of urban life. And most worryingly, America is gradually losing its position in the international community. Tourism is not simply an economic transaction, it is a cultural bridge, soft diplomacy, a way for the world to understand and love America. This is expressed through cuisine, music, museums, nature, and even short, intimate conversations. When the world doesn't come, America doesn't just lose billions of dollars, it loses connection, goodwill, and a leading role in the global story. According to reports, the United States could lose at least $64 billion in international tourism revenue in the near term. But the loss is not measured in dollars. It is measured in the breakdown of cultural bonds that have been forming, the fading of an image of America as open, friendly, and worth exploring. The sharp decline in the U.S. tourism industry has caused a ripple effect not only economically, but also deeply affected the country's international position. This means that the U.S. is at great risk of losing the right to host large-scale international sporting and cultural events, such as the 2026 World Cup or the 2030 Winter Olympics, golden opportunities to promote the country's image globally. Analysts from the Global Tourism Research Institute warn that if the insecurity and feeling of unwelcome continues, the U.S. will find it difficult to maintain its appeal to international event organizers and visitors. Many international organizations have even considered choosing other countries with a friendlier and safer environment. The recovery of the U.S. tourism industry after this shock will be a long process. According to the World Economic Forum, WEF, It will not be until 2030 that the U.S. can regain its leading position in international tourism if policies to improve security, cultural diversity, and benefits for tourists are implemented synchronously and seriously. More than just a financial crisis, the decline in tourism is a profound wake-up call for how the world views America in a new era where open values are key to maintaining its global standing. Will the United States be sober enough to recognize and act quickly to rebuild its image as a safe, friendly, and attractive destination for international travelers? The answer will shape the future of one of the planet's greatest cultural and economic icons. What we share in the video is for reference only and analyzed from many perspectives. Please combine other sources of information for a more complete and objective view.